So who's actually in charge of the streets in Washington, D.C.? Is it the local government that residents selected, or is it the federal government? In this explainer, we're going to dive into a major flashpoint where that very question is being put to the test. It's a story about federal agents, city streets, and a power struggle that could really define the future of the nation's capital. And it all kicks off with this really direct statement from the president. Now, this isn't just political talk. This is a declaration of intent. It set the stage for a huge increase in federal presence in D.C. and escalated a tension that's been simmering for a long, long time. See, to get why the president can even say something like that, you have to understand something called D.C. Home Rule. And honestly, it's kind of built on a contradiction. The 700,000 people living in D.C. get to elect their own mayor and council, sure. But unlike a state, that power isn't absolute. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress the final say, a fact that becomes a really big deal in moments just like this one. So what was the spark that lit this fire? Well, this move by the administration didn't just happen out of the blue. They justified it by pointing to one specific and very public event. This is the incident that really set things off at the White House. A former government employee was assaulted during an attempted carjacking. Now, the police classified it as an unarmed carjacking, and thankfully, the victims weren't hospitalized. But the event quickly blew up, becoming the symbol for what the administration started calling out-of-control crime. And the response? Whoa. It was fast, and it was big. 450. That's how many federal law enforcement officers the White House sent out to patrol all 4 quadrants of Washington, D.C. This was no small adjustment. It was a massive surge of federal power right onto the city's streets. And, it's not just how many officers, but who they were that's really telling. This wasn't just a few more U.S. Park Police. We're talking about a deployment that included agents from the FBI, Homeland Security, and ICE, with the National Guard also being mentioned as a possibility. This shows a multi-layered federal operation, which starts to blur the lines between local policing and national security. But here's the kicker. This all seems to have happened with a pretty shocking lack of coordination. The city's own police chief, Pamela Smith, basically said she knew something was in the works, but get this, she hadn't actually been briefed on the details. This suggests the orders were coming straight from the top, bypassing the usual collaboration with local police. Okay, so this is where we get to the real heart of the conflict. The administration was using incredibly strong language to explain its actions. But how does that rhetoric actually square with the city's own official data? I mean, just listen to the words being used here. A senior White House advisor compared D.C. to a war zone, even claiming it was more violent than Baghdad. The president himself called it one of the most dangerous cities anywhere in the world. Wow. That is the picture they were painting for the rest of the country. I mean, that's a powerful and, let's be honest, pretty scary picture of the city. But here's the big question, right? Do the facts actually back that up? Let's take a look at the numbers. Well, this is where that whole narrative hits a pretty major wall. Data from DC's own police department actually shows a really noticeable drop in violent crime this year compared to last year. So you just put them side by side, and the contrast is, well, it's stark. On one hand, you have these claims of a war zone, and on the other, you have DC police data showing that violent crime is down 26%, and the city's overall crime is at a 30-year low. And of course, the city's elected leader had something to say about this. Mayor Muriel Bowser pushed back hard, calling the comparisons hyperbolic and false, and making it clear that, according to their data, the city is just not in the middle of a crime spike. Okay, so if the data doesn't really seem to support this idea of a crime crisis, then what else is going on here? This is where the story gets bigger. It's about control, it's about money, and it's about the very identity of the city itself. Some observers point out that there's a pattern here, one that's played out before. First, you get a crisis. Maybe it's about money, or in this case, security, and it's used to justify a federal intervention. Then, once the feds are in charge, priorities change. Money starts moving from local stuff, like schools, over to federal security interests. This can lead to big economic changes that help national goals more than local ones. And getting that local power back, that can take a very, very long time. And this is what that can actually look like in the real world. I mean, we're not just talking about police on the street corners. You're talking about huge decisions on things like zoning, public housing, and transportation being made with national politics in mind, not the needs of the people who actually live there. Local businesses could lose out to federal contractors, and it could even speed up things like gentrification. All right, but stats and big economic patterns, that's one thing. What about the people who actually call DC home? How does all this feel on the ground? Well, that debate is way more personal and a lot more complicated. Listen to this resident who went through something just awful. He lost his granddaughter to violence, and he's completely torn. He says he doesn't like the politics of a federal takeover, but for him, that feeling of being unsafe is so real that he'll welcome anything that might bring some structure and safety. And then you have this other really powerful perspective from a resident who lost her brother. She's questioning the whole motive here. To her, this sudden federal concern feels hollow. She's asking, where were you politicians when all these other mothers and children were being killed? It suggests the intervention only happened now because it affected someone connected to the federal government. And that right there, that really gets to the human heart of all this. For so many residents, this isn't some abstract debate about data or home rule. It's this deep-seated feeling of safety, or a lack of it, clashing with this deep suspicion about why politicians are doing what they're doing. It shows you how personal experience can feel so much more real than any statistic. Which brings us back to the ultimate question here, the real stakes in this whole fight. Is Washington, D.C. a living, breathing city for the people who call it home, with its own identity, governed by its own residents? Or is it slowly turning into a controlled administrative zone where the priorities of the federal government just outweigh the needs of its people? It's a huge question, and the answer is going to shape the future of the nation's capital.